Welcome back to another episode of PPK. No, this isn't an episode of Sunday Service. We're all wearing black sweatshirts. This is actually the new Sorrow design.
Yep. Yeah, we'll put pictures up since you can't see our back. You can't even really see the front, actually.
Yeah.
But available now. They're just dropped on the Feast of the Immaculate Conception. So, yeah, if you're interested, put a lot of work into it. Your boy's actually been hand sewing tags and a lot of stuff, so it's been a lot of fun. But, yeah. Yeah,
shout out to Draco out there, who's also part of that collab. So if you're not following, subscribing, and doing all of that, paying attention to PPK, the drops that Miko in particular has been driving have been really good. So don't sleep on it. We've been selling out the last couple of designs, and so just keep an eye on it. This is a Our Lady of Sorrows version, so it's very appropriate for our time in today's age. So we're doing a Modern Saint series, are we not, boys? So I'm going to kick it over to Meeks.
Yeah, no one asked for it, but we're just going to give it to them anyways.
Yeah, I mean, just take it.
No one said, hey, do this. Blessed Miguel Pro, his feast was on November 23rd, so it's a few weeks ago from our recording and when it'll be released. Obviously, he's most known for his pictures, kind of holding up the rosary and the crucifix, and he just gets blasted right there. Yeah. So really intense. So we're going to get into his bio, obviously, like we usually do for Modern Saint series, a little bit of reflection, and then we want to have two sort of main points, right? Talking about Christ the King, Viva Christ Rey, and then being ready for martyrdom, another obvious point there. So we want to show you guys that, we could become pro, basically, is what the goal of this episode is.
we could become pro.
So that's the main point. If you guys have anything to add, I can just hop right into the bio.
Let's just get into it. Yeah. Let's go.
All right. So he's born in Guadalupe. That was also a couple days ago as well. Guadalupe, Mexico, obviously, January 13th, 1891. And the website that I was looking at, he said that he was popular with the senoritas, was the exact words that they used. So, everyone was trying to become pro, in those days. He had a lot of prospects, I guess, of a lucrative career. I think his dad owned some sort of business. I forgot what it was. I don't know if it was like mining, or maybe I was reading some other story of a saint. Who knows? And it all kind of mixes in together. But anyways, he didn't want any of that. He could have had some good career, but he's like, nah, I'm good. And he entered the Jesuit novitiate. This is 1911, though, so a little bit different.
Yeah, it was a little different.
This was in
back in the day.
This was in Michoacan. So he studied in Mexico until 1914, and then that's when they had a bunch of anti-Catholic sort of laws and stuff starting, and basically forced his novitiate to leave, flee to the United States, actually. So he was in Texas and New Mexico a little bit, and then he went to the Jesuit house in Los Gatos, California. So interesting. And then he actually went for his theological studies to Belgium. So he's really, just firing everywhere. And then that's where the French Jesuits, who I guess were also in exile, were. So he did his studies there, and then he became a priest in Belgium in 1925. And then his first assignment was actually in Belgium as well. And he was, this is why I was thinking of it, because he went to go work in like some coal mines or something like that. And I guess a lot of them were like atheists and socialists and stuff, but he was still like, talking to them basically, and essentially, I guess, won him over, is what they said. And then he had a lot of health problems as well. So it seems like common, I guess, with a lot of these saints, especially dying younger, even though he'd even died due to health problems, he just also had them. But he had 3 operations for ulcers, so that can't be fun. And in 1926, they let him go back to Mexico. So by the time he went back, basically all the churches were closing, and any priests that were there were all in hiding. Basically spent the rest of his life in secret ministry, just serving the good peeps of Mexico. He obviously would do things like give people the Eucharist, say Mass, but it would all be essentially like underground, right? So he had a lot of different disguises. I was trying to find pictures of him. I'll try to find as many as I can. There wasn't too many, but he would come, dressed as a beggar, to baptize or bless marriages, whatever. He would appear in jail dressed as a police officer.
Nice.
To
animal.
To bring the fire and sacraments to the people. And then I guess when he went to fashionable neighborhoods, I think this is a more popular one, he would kind of dress and he'd look all dandy and proper, just so that he wouldn't get caught red-handed, I guess. And so then President, I guess there's a failed attempt to assassinate President Alvaro, who's the big atheist guy, and they basically were trying to point it at Miguel Pro and his brothers. So then they ended up getting arrested, and he was executed without trial. Classic. And this is when obviously all the stuff's happening, right? So they have all those pictures, and basically like the president was trying to send a message with those pictures, except it wasn't the message that he thought he was sending.
Right.
He actually fired up a lot of people. And so this is obviously the really cool story where it's November 23rd, 1927. He walks from his cell to the courtyard in the firing squad. He blessed the soldiers, knelt, and briefly prayed quietly. He declined a blindfold. He faced his executioners with a crucifix in one hand and a rosary in the other, and held out his arms in imitation of the crucified Christ, and shouted out, "May God have mercy on you. May God bless you. Lord, thou knowest that I am innocent. With all my heart I forgive my enemies." And before the firing squad was ordered to shoot, Pro raised his arms in imitation of Christ and shouted the defiant cry of the Cristeros, "Viva Cristo Rey, long live Christ the King." And then I guess the initial shots didn't really fire him, so then someone had to go point blank range and do it to him, unfortunately. And then supposedly the president was reported to have looked down upon a throng. I'm not sure what a throng is, dude. It sounds like something else I know, though. Of 40,000 people, which lined Pro's funeral procession. So, and I guess another 20,000 waited at the cemetery. So obviously it had a pretty big effect. Probably shouldn't have put that in the newspaper, I'd imagine. And so there's some other stuff that we get into, but basically, like, it's really interesting. The Mexico government, I mean, just doing things like mandating secular education in schools. So kind of just slowly built in some things, right? So which we could talk about. Forbade public worship outside of church buildings. Restricted religious organization rights to own property. So just a lot of really interesting things. I mean, I think it was at the point, religious couldn't even vote, which is pretty gnarly. So yeah, we don't have to get into all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But I mean, initial reflections.
I mean, first off, if you haven't seen for Greater Glory, you need to go watch it. I'm not sure about the accuracy of it necessarily as far as historically, but it does shed some light on what happens when you try to root God out of the culture, out of society. Caius Law, President Caius, who's the one who ordered essentially, to shut down the church. He knew exactly what to do to still essentially gain control of the people. And the one thing that unifies all classes, all ethnicities is the faith. And I think, so there's that aspect of it, I think, reflection wise. And of course, being very familiar with both the story of the Cristeros, it's one often that I refer to, especially in modern day discussions, because it's really not that far removed. It's a 20th century thing. It's a neighboring country to America. And this is what happens when secular atheists come in and try to take over. They're going to try to steal the hope and the faith of the people and replace God with government. And that's what you saw. But Blessed Miguel Pro in particular is what you hope for in shepherds today. Courage, right? So he's willing to die for Christ and for his bride, the church. He's willing to risk his own life to bring the sacraments to everybody. So, being creative and crafty was just something that was super impressive, right? I mean, really all the Cristeros that gathered together, this was the people speaking out, the people of God coming forth and saying, oh, the government is not going to win this battle. But I think I just wanted to kind of shed some light on that background. But I think for my own personal reflection is how can I go pro, right? I mean,
how can we become pros?
Because it's true, right? Like, how do we, in today's time, be as creative and innovative as this holy priest, and to be able to know when to stand, but also know when, as Jesus told us in Scripture, right? Be wise as a serpent and gentle as a dove. So Blessed Miguel Pro did what he needed to do to be able to bring the sacraments, bring the gospel ultimately to those that he wished to serve in the church. Keone?
Yeah, and I think, you could have seen Blessed Miguel Pro lead riots, right? Or we need to fight against this government. But he, like you said, there's that craftiness, that creativity that I think wasn't even on the radar. I think of just during the pandemic, right? And our shepherds and like what we saw. Mm-hmm. And like, it was like either we just completely acquiesce to whatever's going on just for the sake of obedience, or I don't know what the opposite was, where we need to lead a revolt and just completely disobey. And it was kind of like, well, I'd rather just obey. Right. But Blessed Miguel Pro is like, there's a third option here. And we can actually go out and we can work around and be creative and put his life on the line, but for the sake of his flock. Mm-hmm. And I thought that was really cool because it said that he was still obedient to his elders, right? And to his brothers, right? He wasn't disobeying or defying anything, but he saw the greater good for the people, right? As a shepherd, which was amazing. I'm thinking about for, how do we apply it to my life as like a shepherd of my own home, mm-hmm. right? When can I learn to be creative? Not just, this really upset me that, when my daughter goes into school, whatever school she ends up going to, hopefully it has some solid education. We're working our way up there. But let's say if she ends up at a secular school, I'm not going to just lead a revolt for revolt's sake, right? But trying to find ways to speak truth, trying to find ways to make sure that my daughter's nourished and my future kids are nourished, right? But just to have that idea of being creative and being an instrument and having the courage to be that instrument, right? Because I think we can just go to the polar opposites of like, I'm either going to lead this revolt or I'm going to bend over backwards. And I was like, no, actually, right? The Lord gave you talents, gifts, right? How about you go dress up as a police officer and go into jails? I mean, just right in their face, right? But there's that boldness. And I think that only comes with a passion, right? A complete surrender and just receptivity to the Holy Spirit to even think of that. Right? Like I don't even know if I met a priest, right, who would think about doing that now. Right? Like I'm going to dress up as a public health consultant, right?
Maybe Father Altman, you just have much of a choice anymore.
Yeah. But something like that, I think it just takes incredible passion for the faith, drive for love for the Lord, but also that receptivity. Like this is the desire of my heart for my people, Lord, give me the grace to meet that. And it was just like, I can dress up like this, right? And so meet the needs in a way that was out of obedience, right? That only comes from both passion, but true receptivity. Because we could have reacted out of passion, right? Just straight passion. And then now I'm leading revolts or I'm not standing for this. And it could maybe potentially lead more people away from the faith. So I thought it was just that beautiful balance of passion and receptivity that obviously convicted many people, as you see at his funeral.
Yeah, I was going to bring up a quote real quick. To kind of speak to what you're saying. He says, we ought to shout out against injustices with confidence and without fear. We proclaim the principles of the church, the reign of love, without forgetting that it's also a reign of justice. And I think it's interesting because like the fear part, right? Like, fear doesn't come from God. And so I think a lot of times we can sort of do those things. And that's a lot of where I had issues with sort of the COVID thing, right? Where it's like, we're all living in this fear, and that has nothing to do, like, where's our trust? Where's our confidence in God? So kind of what Kelly's saying, like, we don't sort of go to that extreme. But then also remember, we proclaim the principle of the church, the reign of love. So like, it's all tied in charity. We should be doing things in charity. I think about like sort of my last year, which has been, obviously a crazy roller coaster, but it's been a lot of things where I could be fearful or just don't really have that trust. And it's like, at the end of the day, I've just been trying to figure out, like, am I doing things for myself? Who am I doing it for? But at my core, I should just really be doing it for charity, right? Doing it for love of others, doing it for love of my wife, doing it for love of God. And I think that's most of our decisions, like, what are we doing it for, right? Is it out of fear? Is it for, the sake of what personal justice? Or is it, what I mean, justice of God? But I think that can at least help us propel to the next thing, which I want to talk about Christ the King, because obviously we're going to always be in a point where we don't agree with the government. And I'm not sure in America, I find it hard to believe that we'll get to a point like that of a government, because they're not atheists. They know exactly who God is, you know what I mean? And they're gonna do things that are a little bit stronger, because I think it's subtler, right? So that's the modernist way. They don't really, at least true modernists. Those guys were amateurs. Those atheists try to come out and do all that stuff, right? That's not how you really should do it. So I think that's a good point, at least for us to kind of sit on, like, what does, Christ the King mean? Because ultimately, I think we all learned in 2020 that we had great hopes for something, and we can't put our faith into a politician. We can't put our faith into anybody else except for Christ, right? So no matter what's happening, and Blessed Miguel Pro is moving, once again, out of charity. He's not moving out of fear. So even when it's literally like your life is on the line every single day, right? I think about how many issues I think that I have, and how many times I can just sort of move out of fear. I just really want to grasp control, right? I want to figure out, what am I doing what's my plan? How am I going to be able to do this, this, and that? Because I know that's what God's calling me to. When sometimes he's just calling you to trust in that day, right? He's calling you to just have joy in that moment of not knowing anything. And Blessed Miguel Pro, I mean, really just had no clue each day what was going to happen. But he moved as if like, you know, that was going to be his last. And now all of us aren't in that situation. We got to figure that out for our own selves. But I think it ties back to the idea that like Christ is king. So no matter what's going on around you, right? Like Chris Stefano will get at the whole joy piece, and right, it's Chris.
Yep.
And just like, you know, he had a talk that we went to, and just joy has nothing to do with what's going on around you. Nothing at all. It's always interior, right?
Yep. Well, you think about whether you use joy or even say peace, right? It's not the absence of suffering or chaos. It's the presence of God, ultimately, right, is what we're saying. So when we go to like Christ the King, that concept and what we're, you know, there's so much here that we can unpack, and obviously we want to stay centered on the saint of this series. But does our life actually speak to Christ being the King of our lives, right? Does it, and that means that I'm willing to actually die. And that's the part that we were struggling with. You brought it up, like, where is our faith? Like if we hope in Christ, there's no government, there's nobody that can take away our faith unless we allow them to, right? So we don't allow people to assume an authority that's not theirs. And I think that's the part when we fear bodily death rather than spiritual death, there's a problem. And I think that's the only thing that these communist governments or these power struggles with politicians or, you know, secular media or the tech, oligarchs that are out there, they have the worldly power and they want to try to steal your hope. I mean, we know that's Satan's ultimate goal, right? Is to cause you to give up on God and therefore your life and therefore take your life. So I think Christ the King for us as a reflection would be, well, how is Christ really king of your life? If he is really the true king that I serve, he's got the army, he's got all the resources, and at the end, he has the victory. And so if I'm not living my life accordingly, if I'm trying to acquiesce and ebb and flow, again, everyone has to discern whether or not you're called to be, you know, the Maccabean revolt, if you're the one that's called to be out there starting that revolution. But we should be revolutionizing everyone in our control in our world in a very gospel-oriented way. What say you, Keone?
Yeah, just living out Christ the King in our lives. It can often seem paradoxical in how we live it out as far as exercising faith, because we think about how Blessed Miguel Pro went out and took risks, right? But I mean, even just being out there, you have guns pointing at you, right? And just this confidence. You see the confidence, you see the security, the stability in how he went about in his life. Obviously, in the midst of maybe struggles, doubts, you know, obviously physical pain, right? But I think something that trips us up often is we feel that in order to reach that level of security, stability, confidence, faith, we have to do more and control more. And it's actually the exact opposite. It's like the more we rest in in our Lord Christ the King's love, the more we surrender, the more we become receptive to whatever it is he's calling us right here today, well, then there's the stability, security, because he always delivers, right, in the little ways. And if we can do that and consecrate today, right, then, right, when we are asked to take our actual life, right, give our life up for some cause, it was the series of, I've been doing this my whole life type of thing, right? Because oftentimes we see like, well, it'd be really cool if we were martyred, right? Or that would be like, what a witness testimony, right? To be martyred, and that's the sure way to heaven, right? But like, there's little moments that set all these saints up, that the Lord was preparing their hearts for that. It wasn't just like, hey, you're going to be a saint, so, you know, in a year from now, you're going to, you know, have to give your life up. I mean, they are giving their life up in a lot of ways, not as a matter of a loss, but actually they gained true joy. They gained security, stability in a Lord who wants their ultimate good and can use them to change the world, to change people around them, to actually save souls, right? So there's just that constant, I think we battle this in the day-to-day, right? We want that control. We want to have that faith, that stability, security. And so we want to grasp more or try to control more, plan more, right? And again, it's like, no, the Lord's asking you to receive first. Not that you're never going to do and plan, but it's out of reception first, right? You got to receive the grace. You have to work through, be an instrument through the Holy Spirit, and then it guides whatever he's asking you to do or plan. But I think that's often a big barrier for us as we apply, trying to become pros, right? Is to have that idea of, Lord, how can I, in the midst of everything I'm feeling right now, how can I offer it to you to respond the way you want me to respond today? Yeah. Big or small?
Yeah, you could say being Marian for Petrine.
Oh.
Yeah. You could say that. No, but that was good because that's perfect for what I was thinking for, sort of the being ready to die, being a martyr sort of thing, because you have to be ready to like die to yourself first, right? So that's been I think, sort of a big thing I've been reflecting on, especially because since we've been trying to do, full-time ministry and just really trying to figure these things out. And a lot of times I find myself doing things for the sake of how am I going to do this for the, others? Like, how am I going to be able to reveal this? Or I'm always thinking about the teen or young Miko, how am I going to be able to relay that? But it's more importantly, what I'm starting to realize that like, I need my own heart to be penetrated and like, just really offer things up. Right. And like when Shia LaBeouf says in his interview with Bishop Barron, like, man, it just felt good to hear, like, let go, in the gospel. That's what I got out of it. So I've been thinking about that a lot. Like martyrdom, we can talk about the craziness of it all, right? I mean, blessing the people before you're going to die. Don't even want to blindfold. You want to look the people in the eyes that are shooting you. I mean, a lot of crazy stuff that we could discuss. But if we're not talking about sort of those things of dying to ourselves, and I look at Miguel Pro, and then I think about things that like make me angry, right? Which is like, I don't know, flip flops at mass and just basic stuff like that. And I never forget, I had a conversation with a guy, the same men's conference that Chris Stefani was talking at, and we were saying something, and he was kind of just like, what is this whole sort of obsession with young people and tradition, right? And then I was like, I'm really a very non-confrontational person. So I'm like, all right, well, he's kind of looking at me, and I'm the youngest one there, right? So I'm like, okay, I guess I'll say something. And I was like, well, for me, it's just really, changed the way I viewed my faith, honestly, especially mass. And it's completely, altered so many things for me, the way that I view it all. And so obviously they respected that. I don't think he was saying it as like a, trying to pick an argument. I think he's just genuinely curious. And then we kind of started talking, and he was asking me like, what is it that I want to do, like with the ministry and stuff. And I was telling him, I really want to be the person that I needed. That's all I want to do. I want to show people, I want to be relational, but I want to show people that like, there's not this idea of like, here's who you have to be, or here's who you have to lose. Like you can still be exactly who you are, exactly where you are. Come as you are. And so I was like telling him that, and he was like, see, you didn't have to mention like the liturgy at all, right? Like, and I was like, yeah, I mean, well, it wasn't appropriate, obviously, to mention liturgy, but it was like this idea. He was kind of sharing this idea, like sometimes we get caught up in this like liturgy battle, and like there's souls out there, right? Like, what was Jesus doing? You know what I mean? And like, does Jesus deserve a proper and respectful and beautiful liturgy? He does. But I think his point was like, where was Jesus at though? You know what I mean? Like, was he just chilling in the synagogue and being like, wrong? Or was he like out there being relational? And so I think it's either in that kind of stuff. Like you're thinking about martyrdom, and like that's what these people are doing. They're going out. And as much as I like can get really frustrated at a lot of things, which it really isn't hard to do. You know what I mean? It doesn't have to be impressive for me to get frustrated at it. It just has to be present in front of me, basically. I just been realizing more of like, that piece, like dying to what I think, whatever deserves justice, or dying what I think would just make sense in general, right? Like I just want to make sense of my life at the end of the day when I'm trying to grasp for control, but I got to like let go of that piece. So that's at least when I'm thinking about martyrdom, like personally, that's kind of martyrdom I need. But if it gets to the point where someone's going to shoot me, I mean, we can get there too. But it's almost like, that's almost, I don't want to say easier, but it can be almost, if someone came up to us.
The red martyrdom to say, you need to denounce Christ. I guess I'm just going to have to take a bullet versus the self-denial aspect, the dying to yourself every day, the actually humility required to actually grow in virtue. And it's funny when you're talking about it, I'm, that Mom and I've been, picking up the Chosen series, right? And for those of you who haven't, I was really skeptic about it for a while, and I still have my thoughts and views on it as an overall series. You have to keep in mind that if you're not, you need to read the Bible, you need to understand Scripture, because not all of it is scripturally based, and there's a lot of inferences there relative to a storyline and the drama, right?
And accents.
The accents are, we can do better. But it's a good. There's certain parts of it that's moving. But what you reminded me of, I think it was the last episode of season 1, and you got all the apostles. You even have Mama Mary there, or most of the apostles there. They're sitting around a campfire. Jesus is off healing. He's been healing all day long, and then they just start bickering. They start bickering about. I think they started picking, Peter, and everyone started picking on Matthew because Matthew's the tax collector, and it's just like, they just start having this talk about what it would be like to have power and money, and so they're looking at Matthew. Well, yeah, what was it like? You know what it was like. And then they start having all this, and so then it starts getting sideways because everyone's getting puffed up. You betrayed us, blah 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 blah, and all you see is Jesus. Finally, after hours upon hours of healing, he's walking back, super tired. Barely can walk, and he just like waves over to him. And this is like the end of that episode. He's just like, good evening. And Mama Mary from there rushes over to kind of care to him, washes his feet, cleans off the blood off of his face, because he's obviously was taking care of people that were bleeding and whatnot. And to me, that's the point where we can have some of our arguments, right? We can have the liturgical arguments. We can have about traditional versus more progressive. We can have about your praying style versus mine, charismatic versus this and that. And again, we can go there. We have spiritual preferences in our lives relative to how we want to worship and how we receive God best in our own spiritual journey. But at the end of the day, what are we doing to actually advance the gospel? What are we doing to actually go and heal people and bring people to Christ? And I think that's like a key when you talk about martyrdom. Sometimes it's dying to your own self-preferences as it relates to even God, what you see God as, what you see as Holy Mother Church as, what you see as service, as the priority of service. And so it just really hit home when you were just saying that. It's the first image that came to mind, where it was just like, Jesus is out doing it. We're over here bickering among each other like, well, why would you do it that way? Why would you do it that way? And then we get caught up in that. And then rather than getting vertical first with God and then getting horizontal, we kind of do this navel gazing piece. Keone, closing thoughts.
Yeah, just lastly, the biggest points that came out as you guys were talking is the balance of truth and beauty, and constantly trying to uphold both. And I think we can sway one way or over the other, right? And that's the great divorce. That's one of the great divorces, right? And the devil tries to use them against each other. And so just in applying it to our day, it's not that we don't want to have the most beautiful liturgy. It's not that we don't want to uphold and present church teaching to those that we evangelize. But if I'm not meeting them in a way that they'll receive any glimmer of Christ, either within the church teaching, the catechism, or not, well, then I might be doing it for my own sake, right? And it's like there's that receptivity. Where is this soul at? That I think Jesus, as he was out there healing, wasn't really teaching them at that point, this is what, this is my church and this is XYZ, right? He met their physical wounds first. I'm the healer, right? And then there's this oh my gosh, a drawn to him, right? And at that point, trust, just like with any evangelization, now I can let go of some things of my life. But there's that balance between truth and beauty. And sometimes a person calls for more of one over the other, but that calls for the exercise of prudence. We can't have real prudence if we're not receptive, right? Being receptive, Lord, what do you want me to do? How can I apply these things for that soul? And how can I let go of my own agenda, right? To be an instrument, right? Back to Blessed Miguel Pro, he was an instrument. He had gifts, he had courage, he had passion, but if he did it his own way, it might have looked different.
Yeah.
Right. And that's what we're calling to do, is not that we all have to dress up in business attire or as a policeman. That might not be what God calls us to do as priests of our home or as, just lay persons, but we all have separate gifts, and we have to prayerfully reflect on what is it that the Lord is calling us to use each and every day for the greater glory of God, but obviously to have joy in our hearts and to live that out, because that is what breaks through people's brokenness. That's what breaks down those walls, is that joy that even when a gun is to your head, my arms are out and I am at peace.
Praying for you on top of that.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you look at, now that we've done a few episodes, the same situations with, Miguel Pro and Padre Pio and Pier Giorgio Fossati, what they're dealing with a lot of, corrupt governments, but Padre Pio also was just kind of you got Father Altman, dude. He's like, you're not going to really be a priest for a little bit. And so
stripped of his faculties by his superiors.
Yeah. And I think about what Keone's saying. Yeah, the piece of it is really important. And there can be sort of two ways, right? It can be like the dramatic piece of what Keone's talking to of, look at their situations and what they're willing to do, right? So Giorgio Frassati's selling everything that he has, came from a pretty wealthy family, and he's just going to go and do it. Or Padre Pio just didn't let that lose his peace, I mean, it's kind of hard when you don't know if it's Mary or the devil, he's got a lot of other things he's got to figure out too in his day. And then Miguel Pro just like, I'm going to do whatever I have to do to be a shepherd, And I think that can do two ways, and really just wrapping up of what we've been talking about. There's this idea of, well, look at the evil of what's going on in our government, right? Like we're seeing happening with China, and that's very possible. I mean, they were just all flirting with the idea. It's what COVID showed us, what they're capable of doing. And just the attack on the family and life and gender and all this stuff that's just an obvious formula. But then there's also just the fact of like the division that can be caused between just Catholics alone or Christians or whatever it may be. Like, what I mean?
Your family,
all this stuff. So it's like, we got to figure out those battles that are really worth dying for, And I mean, abortion's one. That's one worth dying for. Yeah. But so is your family, and so is the people around you in your community. And so no matter what was going on, I don't think in our lifetime we'll ever be as crazy as fascist Italy or atheist Mexican government style. Even though there's a lot of common things there. Yeah. But I think we're called to things that are just like we're saying. It's that are much harder, dude. I mean, if you look, this is a pretty rough analogy, but I guess I'll just throw it out there. Like if you did, they always say big tattoos are way easier to do than super small dainty ones, right? Because if you're just doing, if I'm just writing John and I'm not straight, I'll see every little squiggle. If I'm doing St. Michael on the back, man, I could shade the hell out of that guy right there, right? You're not going to see any of that stuff. So sometimes those big things are real easy to do. It's just like when you come home at night or when you look in the mirror or when that alarm goes off, whatever it is. Like we got to figure out what are those battles we're dying for, and then we could become pro.
Yeah, I think, especially as we're recording this on St. John of the Cross, and you think about, submitting yourselves to the holy will of God, right? Like where he was suppressed and thrown into jail by his own order to try to do reform. At the end of all of this, we have to, if you can decide that Christ is truly Lord of your life, King of kings, King of your life, then the martyrdom piece they're correlated. It's part of the package. So whether that's red martyrdom or white martyrdom or both, like, St. Maximilian Kolbe got both. It's part of discipleship. And so for all of you out there, just as you're reflecting on really these two pillars that we were focusing on is Christ King of your life and how is that manifested, and pray through that. And are you, because of that relationship, because of that acknowledgement, are you ready for the martyrdom that comes, red or white? And so we want to encourage you all to continue to listen to us and to kind of reflect on that, and to send any type of communication. I mean, like, follow, subscribe, share.
Anything, dude.
Anything.
If you're just there, dude.
I mean, if you're just breathing, if you can just muster up the effort to click on a like, that'd be pretty awesome, so that way we can go from 4 views to maybe 6.
I mean, we're good. I mean, we got the angle. You guys have already seen the angles we got going on. We got the lighting situation. Looks good.
Yeah,
we're matching now. We're gonna start doing dances that match too. We're gonna do it.
Yeah. We got this whole wood contraption thing that we're on.
Wood, different chairs, dude.
Yeah, we're vibing out over here. So why don't you just continue to join us, continue to support us, continue to pray for us, and maybe one day we can all become pro. So, how we do it. We get holy or die trying. God's peace. See you on the next episode.